red wine I'm talking about.
Well,
you're Alpenwein.
You're probably a Scotch drinker, Herb.
Excuse me. Hi, welcome into Gasthaus. I'm Herb Glover, and we welcome you in for another day. Our guest today, and our guest yesterday, is Dr. Robert Larson. He's a historian. He's the U.S. Forces Liaison Officer for Baden-Württemberg, and the author of this delightful book called Your Swabian Neighbors. This is the second edition of this book, isn't it?
That's right, Herb.
Has it changed any since the first edition?
Well, the first edition, you know, it was printed by German typesetters who know absolutely no English whatsoever. Consequently, all the hyphenations were wrong. But in trying to correct some of these things that the Brits call unholy floaters, misspellings and what have you, I got 2 mistakes back for free. And the thing looked like the first edition of Scott Fitzgerald's This Side of Paradise.
Yeah, so, full of typos.
Full of typos. So in the second edition, I could not only weed out those unholy floaters, but add just a bit more material, a few more jokes, a few more proverbs.
Yeah.
I had the feedback that I got from readers who wanted more of this and less of that, and I got the wonderful opportunity to use the back cover to quote some publicity blurbs.
What are some of the things they're saying?
Well, the most famous writer about Swabians is a fellow named Dr. Hans Bayer, whose pen name is Thaddeus Toll, and he died in April. But he read the book just a few months before his death, and he wrote a very nice blurb about it. Our good Lord Mayor Manfred Rommel calls it a remarkable contribution to German-American friendship, which is nice. An old friend of mine whom I got back into touch with because of this book is a professor of German at the University of California at Berkeley, and he said, Dr. Larson certainly knows his Swabia and its people, its food and wines, habits and idiosyncrasies, which is kind of nice.
Let me ask you, was there a need for the American to understand the Swabian neighbors better before this book was written? I mean, can a soldier or an airman spend an entire tour over here and never get to know the beautiful characteristics of the Swabian?
It's possible, Herb, because he can get turned off very early on. A confrontation with his landlord, a misunderstanding of what the Swabians don't like to see Americans doing in particular, like making a lot of noise with cassette recorders on Sundays and holidays, washing their cars and that kind of thing. But if he knows these caveats, the things that he shouldn't do, then he accepts this. I had a funny experience myself. I like to go swimming with our little girl Miriam. On Saturday mornings we go to the Hollandbad in nearby Bernhausen. And as is customary, when we come home we hang the bathing suits out on the line. And one Saturday we went over there and found out that they were having swimming competitions, so we went swimming on a Sunday morning. And I came home, and without giving it a second thought, hung the wet bathing suits and towels out on the line, and rang the doorbell, and Margaret, my wife, answered the door, and she said, "Where's the bathing suits?" I said, "I hung them on the line." She said, "Take them down, take them down."
It's Sunday.
It's Sunday!
Yeah.
Right. She said, if you don't, she said, "I really don't care, but your mother-in-law does."
Yeah.
And so I walked into the house and went back out again to get the bathing suits and found out they were already gone. My mother-in-law got there first.
Swabian character, everything in Ordnung, immer in Ordnung, ne?
Alles in Ordnung.
Okay, yesterday we talked about the Swabian language, some food, and some other things. But what the Swabian is today is largely a product of his own or her own history. But I was wondering, Bob, do the Swabians have a sense of their own history?
Herb, they most definitely do. I got a very dramatic evidence of that. Saturday night I went to a ceremony in Walderstadt where Johannes Kepler, the great astronomer and mathematician, was born in 1531. And this was a ceremony the like of which I don't think I'll ever see again. It was magnificent. The sense of history and of this man and of his Swabian nature was absolutely beautiful. And they had an elderly lady there, an authoress named Utta Kepler, no relation to the family, who writes biographies of famous women. And she had written and just recently published a biography of Kepler's mother, who had had a witch trial. And her son defended her, and she was finally released. But she had written a beautiful story about Kepler's trip to Regensburg shortly before he died. And he knew he was never coming back. He knew he was a dying man. And he has visions and flashbacks, and absolutely beautifully done. I was moved to tears at the end of it. And I think everybody in the room was, because these were all Swabians identifying with this magnificent person of many, many centuries ago who still is a living tradition of Swabianism and Swabian ingenuity, if you will.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, one of the things you've done in this book is that you've traced your own connections with the Swabians through the years, your own personal connections. And you've had many friends of contemporary figures, have you not? People that you've dealt with in your work and also socially. Could you talk about some of those people?
Well, can I start with the book? The book's dedicated to Manfred Rommel, our wonderful Lord Mayor there in Stuttgart, who's becoming a living legend himself. He's an absolutely delightful guy. He has the terrific, down-to-earth, witty Swabian sense of humor and the ability to laugh at himself. He's extremely articulate, and he speaks excellent English. And it's not only stories about his father, the Desert Fox, and he calls him the Desert Fox, but it's stories about people. And he's really not afraid to speak his own mind.
Yeah. You're not either.
Well,
listen, could you come back tomorrow? I'd really like to extend this a little further. Your Swabian Neighbors is a subject. Dr. Bob Larson is our guest. He's the author of this very entertaining book about our friends in Baden-Württemberg. Please join us tomorrow. I'm Herb Glover in the Gasthaus. Bye-bye now.